All right, hello. This is the lecture videos for Sprint 2, Week 4 of IT 380, the Educational Software Design class. Last week, you could see that I gave you the bubble sort project, so you can follow along with me in Unity, and we covered kind of the major, I guess I wouldn't call it the interaction area, but the input side of it. It was like, how's the camera dealing with world space, screen space, how we deal with these colliders and the mouse position, moving this 3D object, that the representation of the hand, the 3D model around. And that was kind of a lengthy situation, but it was needed to be expressed. This is like the main input mechanism that a user is interacting with into this WebGL build. And now for this week, we will be covering mostly the meat of it, the core, the actual experience. And we also had some user interface elements. So this is kind of a rehash of last sprint, but I need you to be really familiar with the idea anyway, of how you connect user interface elements to method calls of your scripts. And I'm going to do some videos here, and then we have an additional week to wrap up Sprint 2. So I'm creating the videos here for week 4, and then week 4 ends on this Sunday, and then you have an extra week to just wrap up the project. So that's why we have endpoint on Sunday, November 15 at midnight, and you use this assignment submission here to submit. It's going to be 30 points. We don't have a midpoint, so it's going to have that same flow where like a third of the points, or 10 points out of the 30, are going to go toward your feedback to your fellow students. So here we have the feedback 2 days later at midnight, Tuesday the 17th. It's the same style as the other ones. It's just in this sprint, remember, we're just doing one endpoint instead of a midpoint endpoint, just due to time constraints on my side. But the total value of the sprint is the same. I also gave those the option, if this class feels overwhelming, you haven't taken a lot of Unity classes, just follow my project. I can't give a fair assessment of people's skill levels, and I have to deal with the fact that there's a wide variety of student skills. It's just a matter of fact. So if I'm going to offer some students the option to follow along with me, which, yes, I understand, it's a much simpler expectation on the student than if they had to build their own custom project. So it's kind of the honor system. It's like those who really want to push themselves and learn how to do this. I think nobody would be in here if you just don't have a general interest of educational software, educational video games. But I really need to give those the option to, there's two levels of students: those who are actually taking all these video game production classes we have, and those who are kind of taking this class as like a sampler, as an elective. And I have to deal with both student bodies right now until we can, we'll figure out better ways if there needs to be a prereq or structure the class a little differently. But anyway, honor system, pick a path, and you can always choose to change your path later. And so I know that the feedback mechanism, depending on however many students decide to do the bubble sort path, you're like, if it's half the class, all of a sudden 10 students are doing bubble sort, and it's like you're giving a feedback on 10 game design docs for bubble sort. And it just so happens to be. Let's just see what the numbers are like. Let me just see that Sunday. If like all of a sudden everyone's doing bubble sort, then the feedback mechanism might not be as strong. Or I'll reduce the number of people. Like, I'll definitely, everybody who's doing their own custom projects, I will make sure that they get chosen. I might not do an automated choice situation. I might look through the projects. Now that I'm actually discussing this, talking this out loud, I'll probably do that. So what I might do with the feedback mechanism is maybe I'll reduce it depending on how many original projects there are, and I'll see how many people who've done bubble sort. I'll make sure that if you're giving feedback, maybe everybody gets to give feedback on like one bubble sort project, but not more than one. It would get very redundant. So based on the number of original projects and the number of total submissions, I'll figure out if you're going to review 1, 2, or 3 students, and it won't be random. It'll be more like I'm going to have to manipulate the numbers a bit. And based on that, I might sway the 30 points. If people aren't going to give as much feedback because there aren't as many original projects, maybe I'll reduce the feedback part of the 30 points from 10 to 5 and make your actual project contribution more like 25 points. But I won't make that determination until, on the 16th, till everyone submits. And then that either that Sunday night or Monday morning, I'll notify everyone when you got an update of like how many people are you supposed to give feedback on, and then I'll make some type of announcement. I think it's going to be the fairest way to go about this. But in either case, you have 2 weeks to wrap up Sprint 2. So, just to remember what's going on, this is where you submit. This is where you give your feedback. And all the way up here, here's that UX design assignment. So this goes over what's happening. Remember, we're in Sprint 2, or Diamond 2. We've done a research, identified a problem, and now we're concluding our whole effort of discovering our solution space, or what designs are appropriate to solve the problem. And so we're going to conclude with a design document. I've kind of done all those videos on dealing with the design doc and giving samples from Espresso and the binary counting and the bubble sort. I'm leaving up to you because I know people are going to work on that. So here's the template for the design doc. So the overview coming from research. If you're doing bubble sort, you're going to have to generate that all on your own. It's pretty simple though. It's a small overview. It's like a sentence for each of those talking points. You got your executive summary. Do that after you do the rest of the document. You got your learning objectives. So bullet points, explain them in detail. You got your design objectives following your learning objectives, how you can design this experience to try to achieve those learning objectives, bullet points, details and paragraphs. Then what are your core mechanics, your core interactive loops? So if you remember, there's 2 looping frameworks we look at. One is the learning principles of human psychology. Learn something new. Adjust your mental mappings, your mental ideas, concepts of what you think the knowledge is about. Apply it in some way, some type of practice, and then some type of demonstration, assessment, and for feedback for realignment as you begin the cycle again, as you try to relearn, re-hone in, remaster those concepts, and you cycle through. So you have this like learning loop. And this type of looping mechanism is coming from psychology, and UX or HCI is coming from psychology as well. So we have these looping mechanisms in our UX ideas of interaction loops. And we're using that framework where it's the user expresses their actions through some type of input mechanisms, which changes the simulation that they're using to learn from, in this case, which updates rendering or visual and audio information back to them, back to their sensory systems, so that they can decipher, cognate on it, and make more decisions and enable actions on the input devices. So you will deliver the design doc, and you will pick another part of the prototype. If you're following along with me, you'll probably just end up doing what I'm doing. If it's going to be on the tutorial or level 1, which you'll see in the next series of videos. If you're working on yourself, you can choose which of the 3 areas to populate. So remember, this is our title screen, and we have 3 areas that we can jump into and jump out of, right? So here's the intro, go home, tutorial, whatever that's going to be, go home, level 1, whatever that's going to be, go home. So do a solid attempt on one or the other, tutorial or level 1, if you're doing your own project. And you're going to post up a link. This is what I did. You're going to give me a little explanation. So along with the design doc, like as for the prototyping work, here is my link. I've tested it. It works. Here it is on itch.io. And this is what I did for Sprint 2. I decided to build out the tutorial, or it was easier in my mind to actually do the programming for just the level before I even attempt to do the tutorial. I find it easier to do the level and then the tutorial, although I've done projects where the opposite is true. And again, there's no rhyme or reason. It's more just as you approach a unique project, which part of it, which component, which series of systems makes the most sense to build out. So that is what will be expected of you as you end up here, the endpoint in 2 weeks, and you post up, you'll have posted in your design doc, and then you have a little section on your prototype. This is what I did for Sprint 2, and here's the link of it. And remember, all this goes into a posting in Canvas. Do not post up Word docs, PDFs, or links to Google Docs. Do it right in here. If somebody cannot read through this and give you feedback without going to other places, with the exception of the itch.io link, then we have issues, right? All right. So that's the overview. And I'm going to, it's kind of a natural conclusion of this video. So I'll move into the next parts after this.